AITA for refusing to cook Thanksgiving lunch after 15 years. For the last 15 years, I've been the one to cook Thanksgiving dinner for my family and my husband's family. Every single year, without fail, I've woken up at the crack of dawn, stuffed the turkey, roasted it to golden perfection, and made sides to accompany it: mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, stuffing, gravy, cranberry sauce, and sometimes even a dessert or two. The whole spread. I've done this with pride for most of my adult life because it felt like my contribution to the family, a way to bring everyone together and make memories. But this year, I'm done. I can't. I just can't. Here's the thing, I'm 38 years old, a full-time teacher, and a mom to 4 kids, aged 15, 12, 6, and 2. My life is a constant juggling act of lesson planning, grading, wrangling my own kids, managing a household, and trying to stay sane through it all. This year has been particularly rough. Work has been more stressful than ever, with added responsibilities and not nearly enough support. My older 2 kids are in the thick of their teenage years, with all the drama, school pressures, and emotional ups and downs that come with it. My 6-year-old is a ball of endless energy and questions, and my 2-year-old is, well, a 2-year-old clingy, curious, and constantly testing boundaries. On top of all that, my mom has been battling breast cancer for the last 10 months. Watching her go through chemo, lose her hair, and struggle to stay strong has been devastating. She's always been the strongest person I know, and seeing her vulnerable has been so hard. She's opted to stay home this Thanksgiving because she's too tired to deal with the chaos of a big family gathering, and honestly, I don't blame her. But that's just one more reason I feel like I'm running on empty. I've been trying to hold everything together for my kids, my students, my mom, and my husband Dan. Now, when I say I need a break, I feel like no one is listening. For context, Thanksgiving has always been my thing. Even before we had kids, I took it upon myself to cook the turkey and make most of the food. At first, I enjoyed it. I liked the challenge of cooking a big meal and the satisfaction of seeing everyone gathered around the table, enjoying what I'd made. But as the years went on and life got busier, it started to feel less like a tradition and more like an obligation. I don't even get to enjoy the holiday anymore because I'm too busy cooking, cleaning, and making sure everything goes smoothly. By the time we sit down to eat, I'm so exhausted that I barely taste the food. This year, I decided I couldn't do it. I told my husband I was burned out and that someone else needed to step up. I even made suggestions. His sister Sil1 just moved into a new house with her husband and baby, so I thought maybe she could host. She's a stay-at-home mom with 1 child, and while I know being a mom is hard work, she has more flexibility than I do. But as soon as I suggested it, my mother-in-law shut it down. Sil1 is unreliable, she said. What if she doesn't wake up early enough to make the turkey? Okay, but how is that my problem? If she oversleeps, then maybe the turkey is late, and we all survive. Then I suggested my brother-in-law's wife Sil too. She and my brother-in-law got married this summer, and while she's never cooked a turkey before, I figured this could be a chance for her to try. After all, none of us knew how to cook a turkey the first time we did it. My mother-in-law dismissed that idea too, saying, the turkey cooks itself, but it needs someone responsible to manage it. Again, how is this my issue? Why am I always the responsible one who has to take on the hard stuff while everyone else gets a free pass? Here's what really gets me. Every year, my husband's family shows up, eats, and leaves without lifting a finger. No one offers to help cook or clean up. They just assume that because I've done it in the past, I'll do it again. When I told my husband I wasn't cooking this year, he immediately got defensive. He said I was just resentful because his parents helped Sil1 buy her house. That's not true. I don't care that they helped her. I even suggested Sil2 could handle the turkey, so it's clearly not about that. But my husband kept insisting that my decision was about some underlying grudge. Then he brought up something completely unrelated, that his parents always criticize us for going on date nights and leaving the kids with our 15-year-old daughter. He said I've been holding on to that anger and using Thanksgiving as a way to get back at them. Yes, it annoys me that his parents think we're neglectful for taking a few hours to ourselves, but that has nothing to do with this. I'm not trying to punish anyone. I just don't want to cook a damn turkey this year. When I explained that I was exhausted and desperately needed a break, my husband gave me this incredulous look and said, "You have 5 days off before Thanksgiving. Why can't you just rest and then cook?" I felt my blood boil. Those so-called days off are anything but restful. They're not some magical bubble of peace where I lounge around sipping coffee and catching up on Netflix. They're filled with all the things I've had to put off because I'm so overwhelmed during the regular work week, cleaning up the disaster that my house has become, running errands for the kids, catching up on laundry, helping with overdue school projects, and maybe, just maybe, squeezing in a moment to breathe. Rest. What rest? It's a joke to even suggest that I have the luxury of downtime. And even if I did have a spare moment, the thought of using it to prepare for yet another chaotic holiday doesn't exactly feel relaxing. It's not just about putting a turkey in the oven. It's the endless mental checklist that comes with hosting Thanksgiving, planning the meal, making sure I have all the ingredients, timing everything so that it's ready at once, setting the table, making sure the kids are out of everyone's way. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Then there's the waking up at the crack of dawn to start cooking, checking and rechecking the turkey to make sure it doesn't dry out, and then answering the inevitable barrage of questions like, is it almost done? And when do we eat, all while trying to juggle everything else happening in the kitchen. By the time the meal is served, I'm not just physically tired, I'm mentally drained. For once in my life, I just want to show up, sit down, and eat like everyone else does. Is that really so much to ask? But my husband didn't stop there. He didn't even try to understand where I was coming from. Instead, he hit me with, "You're neglecting your motherly duties." Those words cut so deep. Why is it that my motherly duties always seem to include cooking, cleaning, and bending over backward to ensure everyone else is happy, while everyone else gets to take a back seat? Why is it that his siblings can simply say, "I don't feel like cooking this year," and it's accepted without a second thought, but the moment I try to step back, I'm selfish? What about the years I've spent doing it all, often without so much as a thank you? Why is it unreasonable for me to say, "Not this year"? It's not like I'm saying, "I'll never cook Thanksgiving again." I just want a break. 7 years in a row I've been the one to shoulder this responsibility. 7 years of waking up early, hosting, cleaning up, and quietly enduring the stress of making it all happen. I'm not asking for someone to repay me or even to recognize all the effort I've put in. I just want someone else to take the lead this time. Why is that so hard for him to understand? What made it worse was when my husband tried to psychoanalyze my decision, as if there had to be some ulterior motive. He implied that I'm only refusing to cook this year because my mom isn't coming. He actually said that with a straight face, as if my exhaustion and frustration weren't valid on their own. But that has nothing to do with my decision to step back from cooking. It's about the fact that I'm tired, bone deep, soul-crushingly tired. I've been tired for years, but I pushed through because I felt like it was my responsibility, like I owed it to everyone to keep the tradition alive. This year, though, something finally clicked. I realized I don't have to do it. Just because I've always done it doesn't mean I'm obligated to keep doing it forever. I don't need to justify my exhaustion or explain why I need a break. Of course, my husband's family is now in a panic because no one knows how to make a turkey, really. It's 2024. There are recipes, tutorials, and even pre-cooked options. If I can figure it out, so can they. But instead of stepping up, they're all acting like the holiday is ruined because I'm not playing chef. My husband keeps saying I'm making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. But isn't that exactly the point? Why is it always my responsibility? Why does no one else step up when it's inconvenient for them? So now I'm stuck feeling guilty, even though I know I shouldn't. Am I really the bad guy for wanting 1 year off? Or is this just another case of women being expected to carry the emotional and physical labor of family traditions? Update 1. First, thank you to everyone who took the time to read my original post and share your thoughts. I was genuinely overwhelmed by the response and honestly didn't expect so many people to relate or weigh in. This was my first time posting, and I didn't realize just how validating it would feel to hear others say, "You're not wrong for feeling this way." So, here's the promised update on where things stand now, after all the back and forth. After my initial conversation with my husband, I took a few days to gather my thoughts. I didn't want to keep arguing in circles or let the frustration bubble over, but I also wasn't going to back down. I've spent years being the person who keeps everything running smoothly during the holidays, and this year, I finally realized I didn't have to be. I didn't want to be, so I made my boundaries crystal clear and let the chips fall where they may. I told my husband that for Thanksgiving lunch, I would be taking the kids and going over to my mom's house. She's been through so much this year with her breast cancer treatments, and the last thing she wants or needs is the noise and chaos of a big family gathering. She asked for a quiet day, and that's what I want to give her. My mom deserves peace and comfort, and spending the holiday with her felt right to me. I told my husband he was welcome to join us if he wanted, but if he decided to stay with his family instead, that was his choice. I wasn't going to force him to come. This led to yet another round of negotiations from him, as if this were some kind of hostage situation instead of a simple family dinner. He asked if I could at least meet him halfway by popping the turkey in the oven before I left for my mom's house. That way, his family could stick to their sacred 3 p.m. dinner time tradition, as if it were carved in stone by the Thanksgiving gods themselves. I couldn't help but feel a wave of frustration. Not because his request was the most outrageous thing I'd ever heard, it wasn't. It was frustrating because it completely missed the point I'd been trying to make all along. For over a month, I'd been crystal clear, I'm not cooking this year. Yet here he was, trying to rope me back into the very role I was trying to escape, framing it as some sort of compromise. It wasn't a compromise. It was a thinly veiled attempt to keep the status quo intact without having to upset anyone else in his family. He didn't want to deal with the fallout if I stuck to my boundaries, so instead, he was trying to nudge me back into the kitchen with this easy solution. But there was nothing easy about it for me. The thought of spending my Thanksgiving morning prepping, basting, and roasting a giant turkey only to leave it behind so someone else could slide it onto the table and take the credit for hosting, was infuriating. It felt like yet another way for me to carry the burden while everyone else got to sit back and enjoy the fruits of my labor. I said no, firmly, clearly, and without leaving room for debate. Still, I tried to be reasonable. I offered a genuine compromise. I told him I'd be willing to cook the turkey if dinner was moved to 6 p.m. That way, I could spend the afternoon with my mom as I had planned, and still have enough time to prepare the turkey on my terms. It felt like a fair solution, one that allowed me to honor my commitment to my mom while also contributing to his family's Thanksgiving meal. But no, that wasn't good enough. He immediately shot it down, saying 6 p.m. was too late for dinner. Too late for whom? It wasn't like we were feeding toddlers with early bedtimes or operating on a strict holiday schedule. But the way he reacted, you'd think moving dinner by a few hours would throw the entire universe out of balance. His family could wait, but they didn't want to wait, and apparently, that was reason enough for my compromise to be dismissed outright. At that point, it became painfully clear to me that no matter what I suggested, it wouldn't be good enough unless I completely gave in and did things exactly the way his family wanted. There wasn't room for flexibility or collaboration, just the expectation that I would eventually fold and take my place in the kitchen as I had every other year. And frankly, I was done with that dynamic. I wasn't going to let guilt or tradition rope me into sacrificing my plans and my peace of mind for the sake of maintaining their comfort. But he wasn't done trying. He floated yet another idea, suggesting that maybe his mom could handle all the sides while I just cooked the turkey. The way he said it made it sound so simple, as if taking the lead on the centerpiece of the entire meal would somehow be a minor task. Apparently, the logic was that splitting the work this way would make it more manageable for me. But it didn't feel like help, it felt like another way to keep the burden squarely on my shoulders. Sure, his mom could make a couple of casseroles and maybe some mashed potatoes, but the turkey, the main dish, the thing that everyone talks about and looks forward to, would still be my responsibility. Once again, he was missing the point entirely. Because my issue isn't just with the work itself. Yes, cooking a turkey is time-consuming and stressful, but the bigger problem is the expectation behind it. The unspoken belief that I should be the one to do it, year after year, without complaint. That it's my job to make the holiday happen, simply because I've done it before. It's not just about cooking a bird, it's about the emotional and physical labor of being the default person who ensures everything goes smoothly while everyone else gets to relax and enjoy the day. And I'm tired of that. I reiterated my stance. I'd only be willing to cook the turkey if dinner was moved to 6 p.m. When he refused, I stood my ground and said no. I wasn't trying to be difficult. I wasn't trying to start a fight. I was simply advocating for myself in a way I hadn't done before. I told him I'd be happy to contribute something easy this year: sodas, desserts, whatever they needed, just like everyone else gets to do. But I wasn't going to be the one responsible for the main dish. Not this time. Not when I'd already said I needed a break. Not when I'd been clear for weeks that I wasn't up for it this year. They could figure it out without me, and if that meant the turkey wasn't perfect or dinner wasn't served at 3 p.m. on the dot, so be it. It wasn't my problem to solve. What made this whole situation even more exhausting is the fact that we live next door to my in-laws and my sister-in-law SIL1. The proximity alone creates an unrelenting dynamic of constant involvement and expectations. If they need something, they knock on our door. If they have an opinion about how we're raising our kids, they share it, whether we ask for it or not. And during the holidays, it means I'm automatically looped into their plans, whether I like it or not. There's no escape. Even if I've made my boundaries clear months in advance as I did this year, they somehow still act shocked when I don't fall in line with what they want. To give credit where it's due, my husband isn't the type to completely shirk his responsibilities at home. He's always been a good partner in terms of dividing household tasks. He does all the daily cleaning, even when we aren't hosting, and he's equally involved in the kids' baths, school drop-offs, and pickups. I'm not complaining about him as a partner overall. But when it comes to his family, he has a blind spot a mile wide. He's so used to their dynamics that he doesn't see how unhealthy it is or how much of the burden they offload onto me simply because I've been willing to take it on in the past. The real problem is with his family. They insist that no one else can cook or host because they're incompetent. SIL1, who lives next door and is a stay-at-home mom with one baby, is constantly excused from contributing because she's supposedly too overwhelmed. My brother-in-law's wife SIL2, who has been part of the family for 5 years and just got married this summer, is apparently too inexperienced to even attempt hosting. The unspoken truth is that my in-laws have spent years coddling them, never letting them take responsibility for anything, and now they've convinced themselves that these grown adults are incapable of handling a holiday meal. That's not my problem to solve. What's been most frustrating about all this is the way they've tried to frame me as the bad guy. They've known since last month that I didn't want to host or cook this year. This isn't new information, yet somehow, my decision to set boundaries has become a family crisis. I'm tired of being the one who carries the load every year, while everyone else gets to relax and enjoy the holiday. I'm tired of the excuses, the guilt trips, and the unspoken expectation that I'll just keep saying yes because it's easier than dealing with the fallout. This year, I'm sticking to my boundaries. I'll be spending Thanksgiving lunch with my mom and bringing her favorite desserts to brighten her day. If my husband's family thinks no one else is capable of hosting or cooking, that's their problem to figure out, not mine. For the first time in years, I'm finally choosing myself, and it is good. Update 2. After reading some of the comments on my original post and reflecting on how Thanksgiving became my burden in the first place, I realized just how absurd and convoluted this tradition really is. It didn't start as a cherished family custom, passed down with love and care. No, it became my responsibility because no one else wanted to deal with it, and I was too young, too polite, and too eager to please to say no. Now, 15 years later, I'm stuck carrying a weight that was never really mine to begin with. Let me backtrack a little and explain how this all started. When I first met my husband, Thanksgiving wasn't even something his immediate family did at their house. Back then, they usually went to my husband's paternal grandparents' house, where the family tradition was handled by his grandmother and aunts. My husband and his cousins are all around the same age, so as they grew up and started getting married, that side of the family began doing their own thing, smaller, separate gatherings hosted by each aunt or cousin. This left my in-laws without a clear Thanksgiving plan, which is how it ended up falling into my lap. My mother-in-law claimed her oven was too small to make a turkey. She has one of those built-in wall ovens from the 1980s, and while it's not huge, it's plenty big enough to handle a regular-sized turkey. But instead of figuring out a solution, she conveniently passed the responsibility on to me. At the time, my husband and I weren't even living next door to them yet, but because we had a regular freestanding oven, she decided our house was the perfect place to make the turkey. The first year, she brought the turkey over prepped and ready to go, popped it into my oven herself, and came back periodically to check on it. I didn't mind too much at the time because I wasn't really doing the work, I just provided the oven. But, as you might have guessed, it didn't stop there. Every year after that, it became more and more my responsibility. By the second year, it wasn't just about providing the oven. Suddenly, I was the one who had to prep the turkey, roast it, and make sure it was ready to go. My mother-in-law stepped back completely, handing off the task as if it had always been mine. Back then, I didn't think too much about it. I was young and eager to be seen as a good wife and daughter-in-law, so I took it on without questioning it. It wasn't until much later that I realized what a trap it had become. For the first 7 years of this tradition, we didn't even live next door to my in-laws yet. That meant I wasn't just cooking the turkey, I was also transporting it. Every Thanksgiving, I'd carefully pull a hot, freshly roasted turkey out of my oven, wrap it up, and load it into the car. My husband and I would then drive it over to his parents' house, all while praying it didn't slide around in the pan or spill in the car. By the time we got there, I'd be a sweaty, stressed-out mess, and my beautifully roasted turkey would inevitably lose some of its presentation appeal during the journey. But no one seemed to care how much work it was. They'd just smile, dig in, and act like the turkey had magically appeared out of nowhere. To make matters worse, my father-in-law used to make a second turkey every year, either fried or smoked. I say used to because, as it turns out, no one actually liked it. It became this weird family joke that his turkey would always end up being fed to the dog because it was too dry, too salty, or just plain unappetizing. I still don't understand why he kept making it, but it didn't matter because I was always responsible for the real turkey, the one everyone actually wanted to eat. So while his turkey went untouched, mine was the star of the show. Year after year, it was my turkey that became the centerpiece of the meal, and yet it was never acknowledged as anything special. It was just expected. Things only got worse once we moved next door to my in-laws. At first, I thought it might make things easier. After all, I wouldn't have to transport the turkey anymore, which was a small relief. But what I didn't realize was how much closer proximity would mean even higher expectations. Now that I was right there, it was as if I had no excuse not to take on even more of the holiday responsibilities. Not only was I still in charge of the turkey, but I also found myself roped into hosting the meal at our house more and more often. My in-laws acted like it was the most natural thing in the world, even though I had never volunteered for any of it. What really stings is how much this whole tradition has always been framed as a necessity rather than a choice. My mother-in-law never asked me if I wanted to take on the turkey. She simply declared that her oven was too small and handed me the responsibility, as if it were a family heirloom I should be honored to inherit. And my father-in-law's half-hearted attempts at contributing a turkey no one ate only highlighted the imbalance. Over the years, my contributions have grown to include far more than just the turkey. I've made sides, desserts, and even cleaned up afterward while everyone else sat around enjoying themselves. Yet no matter how much I've done, it's always been treated as an expectation, never as a gift or a favor. Looking back now, I can see how this pattern took shape. I was too accommodating, too willing to go along with what everyone else wanted, and too eager to avoid conflict. And while that might have made things easier in the short term, it set a precedent that I'm now trying to break. This year, for the first time, I'm standing my ground and refusing to be the default holiday workhorse. It's not easy, especially with all the pushback I've been getting, but it feels like a necessary step to reclaiming my time, energy, and sense of self. Reflecting on how this all started has been both eye-opening and frustrating. What began as a convenient solution for my mother-in-law has turned into a thankless obligation for me. And the more I think about it, the more absurd it seems. My mother-in-law's oven isn't too small to cook a turkey. My father-in-law could have learned how to make one that people actually wanted to eat. My sister-in-law could have stepped up at any point. But instead, they all decided it was easier to let me carry the load, and I let them. Not anymore.